parents are struggling to pay school fees. That's according to a recent survey by a credit bureau. It's revealed that the current economic climate, school fees are falling in the ranking of many parents' priorities. This applies to both private and public schools. To find out what the situation is on the ground, eNCA senior journalist Aviwe Mtila is at Hyde Park High School in Johannesburg. And I get the feeling, Aviwe, that if you are to get a sense of what this survey means, where the rubber hits the road, the schools that you've been visiting this morning would be where you go in terms of getting a dipstick test of what parents are dealing with, as you know, people are trying to make limited resources go as far as possible.
Well, Bertulas, you got it right. The ripple effect of parents not prioritizing school fees leaves the schools with difficulty to survive. You understand that there are jobs at stake, as well as just the well-being of the schools, as we've heard from the likes of your Bryanston High School. I am now in Hyde Park, just to get a reaction from the principal of Hyde Park High School, Melanie Kelly. Thank you for joining us at eNCA, but I want to talk to the challenges that you've faced because of parents not paying their school fees. Do you have numbers maybe for us in terms of the percentage of parents that don't pay these fees, and maybe stats around the impact in the school?
Good morning, Aviwe, and good morning to the listeners. Yes, it has been a very, very grave challenge for the school. We anticipated close to 34 million in terms of school fees, and we actually receive far less than 50% of the school fees. And that has actually had a very, very, very negative impact on the productivity of the institution. Obviously, we were forced to retrench staff. Close to 30% of the school governing body posts were actually vacated due to retrenchments. Obviously, that impacts on your learner numbers, it impacts on the timetable, and more especially it impacts on the human factor. Over and above, staff, we also suffered at the hands of maintenance. The school relies on school fees for the upkeep of the school. So we also suffered at the hands of maintenance, retrenchments. Just the day-to-day, delivery of quality education was obviously compromised.
And then I just want to look maybe at the education system as a whole, and where the challenges lie as you'd see it as an educator.
Well, I think as an educator, first and foremost, you rely on resources. And school fees actually plays a very, very important role in the provision of curriculum resources. For example, we offer EGD, we offer consumer studies. These are subjects that obviously need certain resources that need to be provided in the curriculum. And if we do not get the school fees, if we do not have these resources, then the delivery of content is actually once again adversely affected. So I think in terms of teaching and learning, that's the most important thing, where as an institution you want to maintain a certain standard of curriculum delivery, and obviously if you do not have the resources you cannot do that, and as a school you rely on the school fees for these resources. And obviously you rely on the school fees for staff, school governing body staff. And like I said, we had to, retrench. We now do not have a sports coach because we had to retrench our sports coach. And Hyde Park prides itself, in the sporting arena. But obviously we had to give priority to teaching and learning, and therefore our non-essential staff was actually retrenched. So here again, holistically, it affects the school.
And the sporting children, of course, may face a grim future. Thank you very much. But I want to quickly bring in Steve Mambona from the Department of Education to find out maybe the help that could be given. We heard similar numbers in Bryanston High School in terms of the staff that's been retrenched, 30% here, another 25 at Bryanston High School. Can't you plug in the gaps as the Department of Education?
Well, we've done that because remember the teacher assistants that we provided a list of those young people who can be interviewed and they tap into that skill. I mean, we transferring those funds, you will know that there's a presidential project So we'll be transferring those funds to schools to make sure that they manage that process. So that all the SGB posts that might have been vacated, the number of young people that we are sending, they will be in a position to assist the schools. But that is not sustainable. That's why we say we encourage parents to pay the school fees. They need to make sure that school fees are paid. If they can't, make necessary arrangements, because you can't ignore the school's call to, when they remind you for those payments, or probably to a certain extent, we know that COVID played a major role, but we need to make necessary arrangements to say, I will be in a position to pay this, small amount, and if you make those arrangements, I think schools are amenable to that, so that you make necessary arrangements. But if you just keep quiet and you say, no, I'm not going to be in a position to pay, it becomes a huge challenge. But you know that there's budget cuts. Even if you were to say you want to be exempted, it means now as a department we must then make sure that those funds are available to schools. But we have also experienced budget cuts that are coming from national.
Do those budget cuts make sense, though, especially given the situation that we've just heard, and a significant amount of budget cut, 5.3%? Does it make sense in this climate that we're facing?
No, look, we are actually wary to go there. It's important that probably, when time permits, that the budget speech is going to be released, in due course, and I think it will then be appropriate to, ask, national on what made them to decide in that score, and make sure that you understand, because each and every decision that is taken, there's background information or what informed it. So they will be in a position probably to tell you why they took that decision. And as the provinces, we are, working with national, so we would not be saying from where we are sitting, the decision probably it was unreasonable, but they are informed by, necessary information that made them to take that decision.
Thank you very much, Steve Mabona from the Department of Education, as well as the principal of Hyde Park High School, Melanie Kali, just talking on the challenges faced by schools on top of the burden of parents not paying school fees, which has left schools struggling. There is also the budget cuts, 5.3% from education.
Yeah, a squeeze on all sides, really, a squeeze on the parents not being able to meet their priorities, and many sort of dropping the school fees a bit lower in terms of the priority ranking, and not by choice, really. It's a situation that what do you do? I mean, you only have so much money, so many resources to go around every month, and also a squeeze on the other hand on the national fiscus. Education is important, but the cuts are happening in many departments, including the Department of Education. All right, eNCA's Aviwe Mtila outside the Hyde Park High School here in Johannesburg, reflecting on that survey that tells us that many parents are now struggling to pay school fees in both the public sector and the private sector.